I've had this now for 6 months. Well, I haven't had exactly this unit for 6 months, but I've had a Lomi for 6 months. And I wanted to talk about my experience with this. There are many electric quote unquote composters that are out there, and this is among them. Basically, this one's special in a way because it seems that like a lot of the press initially for the development of this product was centered around the fact that this can break down bioplastics. And I have had some success with that. It comes shipped in a bag that is biodegradable. You can break it up, put it in there, and break it down. It does accomplish that. It's something that is nice, but again, after that initial go with it, it was not something that I encounter in day to day. But that's basically its major claim here, is that I can handle bioplastics. The other thing is that the company, Pela, is a certified B Corp. They are certified to be carbon neutral. So they basically purchase a verified carbon offsets to bring their operations to net zero, and it lands the Lomi at your door as carbon neutral. That's a bit about the company. There's a little bit more to this that I'll get into as we look into it a bit further, but I want to go back now to its operation. There's videos out there. There's plenty of people I feel haven't painted an accurate picture of the operation of this. That's the whole purpose behind this video, is to just basically, here's my experience and explain some of the research that I've done. First thing is power consumption misunderstandings. A lot of videos are out there talking about how much power this consumes, on the order of 300 kilowatts or 400 kilowatts a month, and it's going to cause your electric bill to go up to hundreds of dollars a month. And not only how much energy is being used, but also where is the energy coming from? What sources are being used to provide that energy, and how much carbon is that generating, et cetera, et cetera. I have recorded every single run of this unit, which totals 78 runs in the course of 6 months, and I have never exceeded 1.3 kilowatts a cycle. Now that's a concern in itself, but for a different reason, and I'll get to that in a moment. But every cycle on this uses way less than what some people are claiming, because I think it comes down to how energy and power are reported on Lomi's website, where they're basically stating that like each mode has a different amount of power that it's using. And so they'll say like the Eco Express mode, which is the shortest cycle, and that uses about 650 watt hours. The middle cycle, which is 750 watt hours, which is used for like bioplastics and things like that. And then the Grow mode, which is the longest cycle, that can use up to about a kilowatt. I think some people convert that into that's how much power it's using per hour. It does, in my experience, use more power than what Lomi claims. And I've had this issue since I've gotten it. It's been multiple times trying to get explanations and understanding as to why this is happening, and there doesn't seem to be an answer. Yeah, I'm stunned by that part of it. But it's not using hundreds of kilowatt hours per month. That I want to clarify. It's not using 1 kilowatt per hour. It's just not doing that. The actual power consumption is 30 to 40% higher than what Lomi is claiming, and that's caused me to be a bit frustrated by it, especially because I run this thing pretty much on solar. I'm a bit frustrated with because it uses more power than it says. It runs for a longer period of time than it says, and then eventually it starts to produce a output that is not really what I would consider compost. It looks more like mulch. Let's get into the quality of the output. Everything that I've been putting in here has been what's been approved by Lomi. So everything that goes into this bucket is, maybe I'll put it on the screen. It seems like over time, the output is getting more and more like hard and crunchy, and not like a mulch or a peat moss sort of thing, which is where it started. This is where it gets into some of the issues that I started to encounter. The first issue was that the fan just stopped working. It got really loud. And then eventually it just stopped working. And it gave me an error on the front. It gave me the cooling light error. Called them and they sent me a replacement fan. This is the original fan, but it is nice that they sent me just the fan and provided me instructions on how to replace it. The unit has a nice division between the high voltage componentry and low voltage componentry. So this just easily plugs in to the bottom, and it was a trivial thing to complete. That lasted for a very short period of time, about 10 or 12 cycles maybe, and then the fan failed again. I got my thermal imaging camera out and I was kind of looking at temperatures around the unit, and I noticed something strange. This unit has two sets of filters. It has a top filter here, and then if you look down inside there, there's just the activated charcoal that's kind of made its way down inside there out of the filter. And then the fan, this fan, sits directly beneath that little vent. And then it blows air through a duct around the side here, and then out through this back secondary filter. So you can see there's the duct there, and you can see it kind of going off in this direction around the perimeter of the enclosure back to where this top filter is. What I began to discover through playing around with the infrared camera, which is that this fan was getting incredibly hot. I mean, on the order of 70 to 90 degrees Celsius. That is above its rating. It's rated to 70 degrees Celsius. So this fan was getting incredibly hot, and this particular one is the one that failed. And you can kind of hear already, you can hear that there's a lot of play in the fan assembly, like the fan and then the bearing assembly beneath it. I actually have been able to get this whole thing apart. I'm not going to take it apart now. And if you look at the way that this is designed, this is just like a regular computer cooling fan. It's not something that is really designed to be used in this application. I'm surprised that this is how this was implemented, because you have very hot air being pulled in through this with very, very high humidity. And then this is blowing this air out into another filter. So it's like it's in between the two stages of filtration. I've had two of these fans fail, and then they took the unit back, and then this is the replacement unit. So the one that I'm pointing at here, sorry, I'm off the camera. So it has a third fan, and the fan is also going on it. It's definitely gone for more cycles than the first two fans, but it seems to be a common issue. And I'm just surprised that there's not more people experiencing this, unless they're just getting a bunch of replacement fans from Lomi. But it just seems like the way that it's been designed was kind of the Achilles heel of this whole thing, which is this fan it's meant to be open air with low restriction, and then it's meant to just blow on something to keep it cool. If you put a restriction on this, then it's a lot of static pressure on this fan, and it'll pull this whole assembly up, and then you're just basically wrecking the bearing on this thing. And I feel like that's what's going on here. Is this fan, honestly, I plugged it into my power supply and ran it afterwards, just a bench power supply. It runs fine, but as soon as you put a restriction on it, and if you get it really hot, it starts to freak out. So it's like it's just not appropriately designed. I don't know what they were thinking, but this is the thing that has failed twice and is now failing a third time on this unit. That's where my larger concerns come in with this particular unit, where it's going beyond the performance of it, but the design of it. It got me thinking more about the unit and if there were other things out there that might perform the job more cheaply or better. It kind of was a culmination of things where I started to realize that I was paying for this unit, which cost me $350 US. In order to get that price, you had to purchase a subscription for a minimum of 2 years for $60 a quarter, so $240 a year, for the replacement, the activated charcoal that would go into these filters, these compost accelerators. It's like helpful micro stuff called Lomi pods that basically help reduce the smell and can help accelerate the composting process. It seemed like, okay, cool, I don't have to worry about it. They're just gonna ship me this stuff. It comes in compostable plastic bags. The idea was nice, but then I started looking at this whole thing as far as the complete package and the issues that I was having with it, and I began realizing this is going to be $800 or $960, whatever it is. I'll put it at the bottom. $890 over 2 years for this thing. It does include a 3-year warranty if you purchase that subscription thing, whereas the unit by itself just comes with a 1-year warranty. It started raising flags to me. It doesn't mean that there's anything inherently wrong with this. I feel like if you have one and it's working out well for you and you're happy with it, who am I to say to stop using it? But if you're having issues with it and you've had fan replacements multiple times, or you're encountering issues with the output of it being kind of like crusty and burnt, you can actually see, I cleaned this thing before I did the video because I wanted to not gross everyone out on the point is, but you can see where there's just burnt stuff. Well, actually that's coming off now because it's been soaked for a while. I think I've got some pictures of it where it's been burnt on there, and it's how hot is this thing getting that it's causing that to burn when that's not really the intention of what is supposed to be happening in the pre-composting cycle. Kind of a strange thing. We don't live in a very large space. It's not quiet. It's definitely louder than our dishwasher. And our dishwasher, it's quiet. It's like, I think 48 dBA or 50 dBA. This definitely has a sound signature that you definitely hear. Honestly, I got really excited about this product when I first got it. And I watched a couple of the live streams, and I was surprised how I didn't hear anything when it was running. And I'm like, what's that one? I want that one, because mine does not sound like that. It just kept souring my experience with this to the point where I was trying to figure out what was going on with this, because I talked to their support, which initially their support was incredibly helpful, very responsive, very on the ball. I started looking into things to try to figure out what was going on with this. I noticed, like, what's this little guy sitting here? And it's like you pull this little cap. Actually, it accidentally came off one day, and I'm like, oh, it's a temperature humidity sensor. Like, it's right there. Actually, sorry, that's the back side of the PCB. If you turn, there we go. There it is. What I began to discover is that maybe when this thing is running, it's collecting a whole bunch of crud inside the filter. The filter's getting clogged. It's not moving as much air through this whole thing. And then this thing can't properly, because it's the only temperature humidity sensor that I can see in this unit. It says it has a whole bunch of sensors. I only see one. I have popped off the bottom and looked at the printed circuit board for the main control circuitry, and I can't see anything else, any other sensor besides this one. So maybe there is something else embedded somewhere that's being communicated back, but it seems like this is the main sensor. I feel like it's the second Achilles heel to this, because this thing gets clogged full of stuff, and it's like, unless they've got an algorithm that expects that to happen, or I have no idea, it's not getting an accurate reading if the airflow through here is not what it expects it to be. You can see how much carbon deposit is down there. And the fan, when I took it out, there wasn't a lot in the fan itself because it blew it all out. But you can imagine that if this is sitting and the carbon is getting in behind there and getting underneath the, like, it's going to get into the fan. I want to share the experience that I've had with something like this. This is a newer type of product. It's not something that is inherently like a new technology. It's got a heating element down there at the bottom, right there, 500 watt heating element. It's got a drivetrain, a transmission that I think is just direct drive, but it may be gear reduced for higher torque that drives that. There's a coupling down there that interfaces with this bucket to turn the little auger inside there. And then you have the fan. That's the last big piece here. The fan, you're moving air through here to remove odors, but also keep oxygen rich air getting inside the bucket so that you don't produce methane. It liberates carbon dioxide, but not methane. And that's super critical. But what I'm saying is, like, these pieces are things that you can just find, quote unquote, anywhere. They're commodity pieces that are built into a product. But the assembly of this, the whole thing coming together, is very different. Trying to find someone who's going to manufacture this when you've got dozens and if not hundreds of manufacturers that have specialized in making other small appliances for the kitchen, where this is a new manufacturing technology. And that brings me to my last point, which is the company that actually manufactures this. And this is. So if we look at the bottom here, we can see that it is ETL listed for both the Canadian and US market, and it conforms to the UL standard 499, as well as the CSA standard 22.2 number 64. They are relevant to what this thing is doing. It is within the scope of these standards for this particular type of device, even though it's kind of a newer thing that there probably isn't a specific standard for. What's more interesting is this additional information in this table here. All right, so the interesting bit here is that the product name, Lomi, and then we get to the manufacturer name and the vendor name. And instead of seeing Pela, because some of the marketing on the Lomi website indicates that it is Lomi by Pela, we instead see Open Minds Development Corporation for both the manufacturer name and the vendor name. If we look up Pela, Pela is certified to be climate neutral and is a B Corp, but Lomi doesn't appear to be manufactured or distributed by Pela, rather this Open Minds Development Corporation. Specifically, Pela is a brand, which you can find just by looking on Lomi's website and looking up the certifications that they link to. It's a brand and not a company. So if you look at Pela's website, the site clearly shows that Pela is part of Open Minds Development Corporation. So it's likely that Lomi is under the Pela umbrella, but it's not clear here. It's not clear. It's not on the Lomi's website, nor on the unit itself. Pela really isn't mentioned much on the site, with the exception of the links to the specific certifications for it being carbon neutral and a certified B Corp. So it raises the question, is the Lomi R&D, the manufacturing, assembly, packaging, warehouse, transportation, shipping, etc., is that all within what Pela is doing as a brand? Personally, I'd prefer to see all of this certified under the what seems to be the parent corporation, Open Minds Development Corporation, and not Pela as a brand. But there are many ways that Pela or Open Minds Development Corporation could clarify this. At the time of recording this, it's unclear from the available information on the website and through the referenced third-party verifications, which only reference Pela as a brand and not Open Minds Development Corporation. Let's wrap this up. This product is now one of many that exist on the market. The brand Pela, and by extension the company Open Minds Development Corporation, make some bold claims about the product and its performance and efficiency. And while the product does perform the task that it was designed to do, there are some glaring design and engineering implementations that make this feel more like a late phase prototype and not a first generation product. If Lomi or Pela or Open Minds Development Corporation were to clarify these claims and back them up with third-party testing and validation, then it would alleviate the concern around the claims that they're making. As far as the durability and the functionality of the product, while I don't feel that the product is a hazard from a fire or shock perspective, some issues directly affect the longevity of the product. It would be unfortunate if users were left to resort to just dumping it into e-waste, or worse, a landfill, if they did not elect to purchase the extended warranty. Pela and Open Minds can do better, but making claims about power consumption and the food processing capabilities that do not hold up in real-world testing and use causes me to question more than just the product. Add to that, the subscriptions and now the bundle model with massive savings offered also leads to a general feeling of deception on some level from a company that feels like it is shouting from the rooftops how altruistic it is. I'll leave it with this. I welcome Pela and Open Minds to clarify the power consumption ratings and the food processing weight and cycle ratings, along with clarification around the carbon neutrality and operations of Open Minds Development Corporation, which is at least the manufacturer and distributor of the product. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.